Object-oriented ontology is a philosophical movement founded by Graham Herman in the late 1990s. The name sounds technical, but the core idea is simple. Everything is an object, not just physical things like rocks and tables, but also fictional characters, institutions, events, software, and even ideas. Object oriented ontology insists that all objects deserve equal philosophical attention. Why does this matter? Because most modern philosophy has been obsessed with one special kind of object, the human mind. Modern thinkers from Descartes to Kant assumed that humans are radically different from everything else. Object oriented ontology rejects this. Humans are just one type of object among countless others. A human is not more real than a worm, a hammer, or the Dutch East India Company. The term flat ontology comes from Manuel Delanda. Though object oriented ontology has made it central, flat ontology means do not rank objects. Do not say that atoms are more real than chairs or humans are more real than atoms. Everything that exists equally. Why is this radical? Because most philosophies do the opposite. Medieval philosophy ranked God above creation. Modern philosophy ranks human consciousness above everything else. Even today, many thinkers assume that physics gives us the most real picture of the world, that tables are really just collections of atoms. Object oriented ontology says this is a mistake. A table is not less real than an atom. The table has properties the atoms do not. It can hold a coffee cup, it can be sat on, it has a history. These are not illusions, they are real features of real object. The same applies to fictional objects. Sherlock Holmes is not a physical thing, but he is a real object in the sense that he has stable properties. He lives in 221B Baker Street, he plays violin, and he uses cocaine. You cannot explain Holmes away by pointing to atoms. He exists at a different level. Flat ontology is a starting point, not a final destination. We do not say all objects are identical, only that we should not eliminate some objects because they do not fit our favorite scientific picture. Object oriented ontology argues that most philosophies make one of two mistakes. They either undermine objects or overmine them. Undermining means reducing an object to its smallest pieces. This is what physics does. A table is really atoms, which are really quarks, which are really strings. The object itself disappears. Object oriented ontology rejects this because larger objects have emergent properties that smaller pieces do not. A marriage is not just two individuals, a city is not just 4.5 million people standing in a field. Overmining means reducing an object to its effects or relations. This is what actor network theory of Bruno Latour does. An object is nothing more than what it does. If it stops acting, it stops existing. Object oriented ontology rejects this because objects have a surplus beyond their actions. You are more than what you are doing right now. A hammer is more than the act of hammering. Object oriented ontology insists that objects are irreducible both downward and upward. An object is not its pieces and not its effects. It is something in between, something that endures through changes in both its components and its relations. The only way to properly understand an object is through indirect means, not direct knowledge. This brings us to the next key idea. The important idea in object oriented ontology is that objects withdraw from direct access. You never encounter a thing itself. You only ever encounter a translation, a caricature, a shadow of the real object. This is not skepticism. Object oriented ontology is not saying we cannot know anything. It is saying that reality is so real that any direct grasp is impossible. Think of a wine. A chemical assay gives you one translation, a list of molecules. A wine taster's experience gives you another translation, flamboyant and velvety. Neither is the wine itself. The wine withdraws from both science and perception. But here is the crucial twist. Objects do not just withdraw from humans, they withdraw from each other. Fire does not directly contact cotton, it contacts a sensual translation of cotton. Cotton does not directly contact fire, it contacts a sensual translation of fire. This is called vicarious causation. All contact between real objects happens indirectly through a sensual mediator. This distinguishes object oriented ontology from Kant. Kant said things in themselves exist but are inaccessible to humans. Object oriented ontology says things in themselves exist and are inaccessible to everything, including other things. No special privilege for humans, no special privilege for God. Withdrawal is universal. Object oriented ontology divides objects and qualities into two types, real and sensual. Real objects exist whether or not they are currently affecting anything else. The real sun exists even when you sleep. Sensual objects exist only as correlates of some real object's experience. The sun, as you see it right now, is a sensual object. It vanishes when you look away. Real qualities are the genuine properties of real objects. You never directly know them. Sensual qualities are the properties that appear to us, the redness of an apple, the hardness of a table. These two types of objects and two types of qualities combine in exactly four ways, creating four fundamental tensions. First is space. A real thing appears to us through shifting partial qualities. The real hammer shows itself through its dented head, its wooden handle, its weight in your hand. Second, time. An enduring sensual object like the White House as you perceive it has constantly changing sensual qualities, different angles, different lighting. This is time, endurance through change. Third is eidos, a sensual object, what you perceive has real qualities that belong to it. Whether you notice them or not, the White House has a structure that would collapse if certain conditions were met, whether anyone perceives it or not. Fourth is essence. A real object has real qualities that make it what it is. But you cannot directly know either the object or its real qualities. This is the deepest, most hidden level. This fourfold is the engine of object oriented ontology's method. Every phenomenon, causation, perception, art, time, and space can be understood as a play between these four poles. Most philosophers think mathematics or science is the model for real knowledge. Object oriented ontology disagrees. Aesthetics, the experience of art, is the model for philosophy. Why? Because art does not claim to give you literal truth. A metaphor like the wine dark sea does not state a fact. There is no scientific justification for calling the sea wine dark. Yet the metaphor gives you something science cannot, a sense of the sea itself, its withdrawn reality. Here is how metaphor works according to object oriented ontology. Start with the sensual object, the sea, and sensual qualities, dark blue, rough, cold. Replace the usual sensual qualities with improbable ones, wine dark. The sensual object cannot sustain these strong qualities, it cracks open. The real sea, which always withdraws, is nowhere to be found. So the reader, a real object, steps in and becomes the sea, supporting the wine dark qualities. This is theatricality. When you experience art, you are not a passive observer. You are a method actor. You become the object. This is why art moves you in ways that scientific reports do not. Object oriented ontology says philosophy works the same way. Philosophy does not give you knowledge, it gives you indirect access to reality through metaphor, analogy, and allusion. The goal is not truth. Truth implies direct grasp. The goal is contact with the real, however indirect. If real objects never touch directly, how does anything happen? How does fire burn cotton? How does one billiard ball move another? Object oriented ontology answers through sensual mediators. Two real objects cannot relate directly. They relate through sensual versions they make of each other. Think of it this way: the real fire encounters a sensual translation of the cotton. That sensual cotton carries the real qualities of the real cotton. When the fire acts on the sensual cotton, there is a retroactive effect on the real cotton. The real cotton burns because its sensual version was burnt. This sounds strange, but it solves a classical philosophical problem. How can two separate things affect each other without merging into one? If fire and cotton touched it directly, they would have to share a single reality, which makes no sense. Vicarious causation keeps them separate while allowing genuine interaction. This model also explains change. Objects change when their sensual translations change. A person is not just a bundle of actions, but when enough new actions accumulate, the sensual version shifts and the real person shifts retroactively. This is why you can become a different person over time while remaining the same object. Object oriented ontology has strong implications for politics. The main one: there is no political knowledge. No one has the truth about how society should be organized. This rejects both left and right in their traditional forms. The left often claims to know what justice requires. The right often claims to know that human nature is fixed and unchangeable. Both claim knowledge, both are wrong. Politics for object oriented ontology is about coalitions around issues. An issue arises: dairy subsidies, climate change, and immigration. Stakeholders gather, they debate, eventually a decision is made. But the decision is not true, it is just a temporary closure. The losers are excluded, not refuted. They can return when the issue reopens. This is Bruno Latour's object oriented politics, which object oriented ontology endorses. It is a politics without certainty, without final answers, without revolutionary blueprints. All you can do is form alliances, argue for your position, and accept that you might lose. Object oriented ontology also insists that non human objects are political actors. Climate change is not just a human dispute. Carbon dioxide molecules, rising sea levels, melting ice caps, these are actors in the political chain. Any politics that ignores them is not realistic. Object oriented ontology offers a way out of two dead ends. First, it escapes the dead end of social constructionism, the idea that everything is made by language or power. Object oriented ontology says reality is real, things exist whether you talk about them or not. Second, it escapes the dead end of scientific reductionism, the idea that physics tells you what really exists. Object oriented ontology says physics is just one translation of reality. Your coffee cup, your marriage, your fear of spiders, these are not less real than quarks. The important message of object oriented ontology is: respect objects. Do not reduce them to their pieces. Do not reduce them to their effects. Do not treat humans as the center of the universe. Do not claim direct access to anything. Approach reality indirectly through metaphor, through art, philosophy, and accept that the real will always exceed your grasp. This is not a failure of thought, it is the very condition that makes thought worthwhile.